Every wolf in the kingdom believed that no matter what happened, a mother would always stand beside her own son. But on the night fate demanded an impossible choice, the alpha's Luna did the unthinkable. Before thousands of wolves, she walked away from her own heir, and chose to stand beside a lonely 19-year-old Omega that everyone had rejected. The crowd was horrified. They called her a traitor. Her own son swore revenge. Within moments, the kingdom was divided, lifelong loyalties were shattered, and chaos began to spread like wildfire. But none of them knew the truth. None of them knew that her single decision would awaken an ancient secret, unleash a ruthless enemy who had been waiting for generations, and reveal that the weakest wolf in the kingdom was never the one they should have feared. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more. Now, let's begin the story. Chapter 1. My name is Lenara Ashthorne, and before you judge me, listen to my story until the very end. History always remembers the scandal, but it rarely remembers the reason. The wolves called me a traitor. Some called me a heartless mother. Others whispered that I had cursed our bloodline. But none of them knew the truth. None of them stood where I stood on the day everything changed. If they had, perhaps the moon goddess would not have allowed our kingdom to drown in blood. I became Luna of the Ironcrest Pack when I was only 22 winters old. I was young, hopeful, and deeply in love with Alpha Kalen Ashthorne. He was powerful without being cruel. Wise without pretending to know everything. He taught me that true strength was measured by the people who felt safe under your protection. For 25 peaceful years, our pack flourished. Children laughed through every season. No family ever slept hungry. Justice mattered more than power. Then my husband died. Not in battle. Not by poison. His heart simply failed him during the first snowfall. When they carried his body through the gates, something inside me died with him. But I had no time to grieve. Our only son, Darius Ashthorne, inherited the Alpha title. The entire kingdom celebrated. I smiled. I blessed him before every elder. I placed his father's ceremonial cloak upon his shoulders. Yet somewhere deep inside my heart, I felt afraid. Not because Darius lacked strength. He possessed plenty of it. He was the strongest wolf of his generation. What frightened me was something far more dangerous. He loved power more than people. That weakness had lived inside him since childhood. As a boy, he never shared. Never admitted mistakes. Never apologized. Whenever another child won a race or earned praise, Darius became furious. His father corrected him countless times. Soften your heart before you harden your fists, Kalen often warned. Darius always nodded. He never listened. After becoming Alpha, his true nature no longer hid behind polite smiles. Taxes increased. Punishments became harsher. Warriors competed for his approval by humiliating weaker wolves. Fear slowly replaced respect. I tried speaking with him many times. My son, I told him one evening as we watched the moon rise, a pack survives because every wolf matters. He barely looked at me. The weak exist to serve the strong. I froze. Who taught you that? The world. No, I whispered. Your pride. He laughed. For the first time in my life. My own son laughed at wisdom. Everything finally changed during the annual moon bond ceremony. Every unmated wolf gathered beneath the ancient silver oak. It was the night the moon goddess revealed destined mates. Hundreds filled the sacred clearing. Families celebrated. Children played among glowing flowers. Priests prepared blessings. Hope filled the air. Then fate arrived wearing torn clothes. His name was Eric's Vale. A 19-year-old Omega. Thin. Scarred. Quiet. His parents had died years earlier during a rogue attack. Since then, he survived by repairing roofs, tending gardens, and doing work no one else wanted. Most wolves barely noticed he existed. Some mocked him openly. Others pretended he was invisible. Yet every elder secretly admired one thing about Eric's. Despite endless cruelty, he never became cruel himself. I had watched him for years. Whenever elderly wolves struggled carrying water, he helped. Whenever children cried, he comforted them. Whenever someone insulted him, he simply smiled and continued walking. That kind of strength cannot be taught. It is forged inside suffering. As moonlight poured over the clearing, every destined pair slowly discovered each other. Laughter echoed everywhere. Then suddenly, the sacred moon crystal exploded with silver light. Gasps spread across the crowd. The light stretched toward Eric's. Confusion swept across every face. No Omega had ever received such a powerful blessing. The light continued moving. Then it stopped before Lady Selene Ravenshade. The future Luna. My son's chosen mate. Silence. Absolute silence. The mating bond had spoken. Lady Selene belonged to Eric's. Not Darius. Not the future Alpha. An Omega. I watched disbelief consume the crowd. Darius stepped forward. His aura shook the earth. This is impossible. The high priest trembled. The moon goddess does not make mistakes. I reject her decision. The priest lowered his head. No Alpha has authority over destiny. Darius's eyes burned with rage. I said, I reject it. He grabbed Eric's by the throat before anyone could react. The young Omega never fought back. He simply struggled to breathe. Lady Selene screamed. Stop. Instead, Darius threw Eric's across the sacred stones. Blood stained the white marble. The entire gathering stood frozen. Waiting. Watching. No one dared challenge their Alpha. Except me. I walked into the center of the ceremony. Every step echoed like thunder. Darius. He ignored me. I spoke louder. Release your anger. This Omega stole what belongs to me. No. I stared directly into my son's furious eyes. No person belongs to another. His face darkened. You would defend him? I will defend what is right. The crowd gasped. Never before had a Luna publicly opposed her Alpha. Darius pointed toward Eric's. He is nothing. I slowly turned toward the injured Omega. His face was bruised. His hands trembled. Yet even now, he looked more worried about everyone else than himself. I saw kindness. Humility. Compassion. Everything leadership should be. Then I looked back at my son. I saw only wounded pride. At that moment, the hardest decision of my entire life became the easiest. I raised my voice so every wolf could hear. If our future depends on choosing between pride and character. I walked toward Eric's. Extended my hand. And helped him stand. Then today, I placed my Luna's cloak across his shoulders. I choose the wolf everyone else abandoned. The clearing erupted into chaos. Warriors shouted. Elders argued. Families screamed. Some called me wise. Many called me insane. Darius stared at me as though I had become a stranger. You chose an Omega. His voice shook with disbelief. Over your own son. I met his eyes without fear. No. I answered softly. I chose integrity over arrogance. His wolf exploded from within him. The ground cracked beneath his feet. I swear before every witness. He pointed directly at Eric's. He will regret the day you saved him. Eric's lowered his head. I never wanted any of this. But destiny rarely asks permission before changing lives. As thunder rolled across the mountains, a cold wind swept through the sacred clearing. The oldest elder looked toward the darkening sky. His face turned pale. The prophecy. He whispered. It has begun. None of us understood what those words truly meant. Not yet. But before another moon would rise, the first blood of a coming civil war would stain the lands of Ironcrest forever. Chapter 2. The night I placed my Luna's cloak over Eric's Vale's shoulders, I did not only challenge my son. I challenged centuries of tradition. And traditions, would soon learn, fight harder than armies. When dawn finally broke over Ironcrest, no birds sang. The forest itself seemed to hold its breath. Every path through the village carried whispers. She betrayed her blood. An Omega can never stand beside an Alpha. The moon goddess must be testing us. Others defended me in quiet voices. Did you not see what Eric's did? He never fought back. The Luna protected justice. The Alpha crossed a sacred line. Our pack had never been so divided. That frightened me more than my son's anger. A pack can survive famine. It can survive war. But when wolves stop trusting one another, the cracks begin from within. I found Eric sitting alone behind the old healer's lodge before sunrise. He was carefully stitching a torn blanket instead of tending to his own bruises. His hands shook from exhaustion. His cheek was swollen. Fresh cuts marked his neck where Darius had grabbed him. Still, his first words were not about himself. My Luna. I interrupted gently. Call me Lunara. He lowered his eyes. I cannot. Why? Because you sacrificed your reputation for me. I sighed and sat beside him. No. I sacrificed it for what was right. He looked toward the mountains. I don't understand. You will. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The silence between people who carry heavy burdens is often more meaningful than conversation. Finally, he whispered. I wish the bond had chosen someone else. I looked at him carefully. Do you? Everyone would have been happier. I smiled sadly. Everyone except truth. He frowned. I don't understand. Many people mistake peace for silence. He waited. Real peace is built on justice. If injustice is allowed to continue simply because confronting it is uncomfortable, then peace becomes nothing more than fear wearing a beautiful mask. Those words stayed with him. I could see it. Before noon, the Council of Elders summoned me. The great council chamber had witnessed generations of alphas. Its stone walls carried the stories of our ancestors. Today, they echoed with tension. Every elder was present. Even those too old to walk had been carried inside. At the center stood Darius. He wore his father's alpha cloak. Yet somehow, it no longer suited him. He looked older than yesterday. Angrier. More desperate. As I entered, every eye turned toward me. Elder Rowan spoke first. Luna Lunara. I am here. You stand accused of undermining the Alpha before the entire kingdom. I do. Murmurs filled the hall. You admit it? I do. Darius smiled coldly. So you confess. I confess to defending an innocent wolf. His smile disappeared. The eldest healer rose slowly. Before judgment is passed. She looked toward Darius. We must ask one question. She pointed her walking staff at him. Did you attack Eric's during a sacred ceremony? Silence. The answer was obvious. Everyone had witnessed it. Still, Darius refused to speak. Finally he answered. Yes. And why? He stole my mate. The healer shook her head. No. The moon goddess chose. You refused to accept her choice. Darius clenched his fists. I am Alpha. You are. But even an Alpha answers to the moon. The room became painfully quiet. The council postponed judgment until sunset. No one wanted to make such an important decision in anger. That was wisdom. Unfortunately, not everyone possessed wisdom. As I left the council hall, one of my guards ran toward me. My Luna. What happened? He struggled to breathe. The Omega District. What about it? It's burning. My heart stopped. Eric's. Without another word, I ran. Smoke already darkened the sky. Families screamed. Children cried. Flames consumed wooden homes. Warriors stood watching. Watching. Not helping. I grabbed one by the arm. Why are you standing there? The Alpha ordered us not to interfere. For a moment, I could not believe what I had heard. You would let children burn because someone gave you permission? He lowered his eyes. No. I stepped onto a broken cart. My voice rose above the fire. Every wolf who still remembers the meaning of this pack. I pointed toward the flames. Help them. For one heartbeat. No one moved. Then an old blacksmith grabbed a bucket. I'll help. A baker followed. Then hunters. Then healers. Then young warriors. Within minutes, hundreds ignored Darius's command. Not because they rejected authority. Because they remembered compassion. Leadership built on fear was beginning to crack. We found Eric's inside one of the burning homes. Not trapped. Not hiding. He was carrying an elderly Omega on his back. He disappeared into the smoke again. And again. And again. Each time, he rescued someone else. A frightened child. A blind grandfather. A pregnant woman. He never once thought about escaping first. When the final roof collapsed, Eric's barely stumbled out alive. His arms were covered with burns. His breathing was uneven. Yet his first question was, is everyone safe? Not. Am I safe? I watched wolves who had mocked him for years lower their heads in shame. Respect cannot be demanded. It must be earned. That day, Eric's earned it. Late that evening, I walked alone to the memorial garden where my husband rested. The moonlight covered his stone like silver. I knelt before it. I miss you. The wind answered with gentle silence. I don't know if I made the right choice. For several moments, I simply cried. Not as Luna. Not as leader. But as a mother. Because despite everything, I still loved Darius. Love does not disappear simply because someone loses their way. That is one of life's hardest lessons. As I wiped my tears, I heard footsteps behind me. It was Lady Celine. She stood quietly beside the grave. I've been looking for you. You found me. She stared at Kalen's memorial. I understand now. What do you understand? Why you chose Eric's. I looked at her. You do? She nodded slowly. I spent years believing strength meant standing beside the most powerful wolf. She smiled sadly. But today, I saw the strongest wolf in the entire kingdom. She wasn't talking about Darius. She wasn't even talking about herself. She was talking about Eric's. Not because he was powerful. Because he remained kind in a world that rewarded cruelty. Far beyond Ironcrest. Hidden inside the ancient Black Hollow Mountains. A cloaked figure watched our kingdom through a bowl filled with shimmering water. An old scar stretched across his face. His eyes glowed with unnatural silver. He smiled. So, the prophecy truly awakens. A young servant bowed. My lord. Shall we begin? The stranger's smile widened. Not yet. He touched the image of Eric's reflected in the water. First, let the kingdom destroy itself. Then we shall collect what remains. As thunder echoed across the distant mountains, I had no idea that my decision had awakened an enemy who had waited decades for our pack to fall. And by the time we learned his name, it would already be too late. Chapter 3. If there is one lesson I wish every parent, every leader, and every child could understand, it is this. When pride becomes more important than truth, destruction always follows. I learned that lesson too late. The morning after the fire, Ironcrest no longer felt like home. The laughter that once filled our streets had vanished. Neighbors who had shared meals together now crossed the road to avoid one another. Warriors argued in the training grounds. Merchants whispered behind closed doors. Families chose sides. Some stood with Alpha Darius because they believed loyalty to the Alpha was sacred. Others stood with me because they believed justice must come before status. Neither side realized that while we argued among ourselves, someone else was quietly preparing to destroy us all. I called for a gathering in the great square. Not to defend myself. Not to shame my son. But to remind everyone what it meant to belong to a pack. Hundreds of wolves gathered beneath the ancient oak. The air was heavy with suspicion. I stepped onto the stone platform and looked across the crowd. I know many of you are angry. No one answered. I know many of you believe I chose an Omega over my own son. A few wolves nodded. I understand why it appears that way. I took a slow breath. But hear this carefully. A mother who always agrees with her child is not showing love. A mother who teaches her child to choose what is right, even when it hurts, is showing the greatest love of all. Silence spread across the square. Darius is my son. I have loved him since the day I first held him. And I will love him until my final breath. But love without accountability becomes permission. If I excuse cruelty because it comes from my own family, then I am no better than those who ignore injustice. The crowd lowered their eyes. I could see many of them thinking about their own lives. That was all I had hoped for. Later that afternoon, I found Eric's repairing the roof of a widow's cottage. His burns had barely begun to heal. "Why are you working?" I asked. He smiled. "Because the rain won't wait for my wounds to heal." I shook my head. "You should be resting." He climbed down from the ladder. "My Luna." "Lunara," I corrected gently. He smiled awkwardly. "Lunara. I've spent most of my life waiting for someone to help me. No one came. So I learned something." "What?" "If I have enough strength to help someone else, then today is not a day to feel sorry for myself." I stared at him for several moments. Some wolves become bitter because life is unfair. Others become kinder because they know exactly how unfair life can be. Eric's belonged to the second kind. Those are the rarest souls. That evening, Lady Celine came to speak with me. She looked exhausted. "There is something you should know." "What is it?" "Darius came to see me." My heart tightened. "What did he say?" "He asked me to reject the moon bond." I wasn't surprised. "And?" She looked toward the moon. "I told him I couldn't." She swallowed hard. "He accused me of humiliating him." I gently took her hands. "Did he threaten you?" She hesitated. "Not directly. But his anger frightened me." I nodded slowly. Fear is often the first sign that someone has begun listening more to their pride than to their conscience. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "I never wanted to stand between a mother and her son." "You aren't. Pride is." That same night, Darius gathered his closest warriors inside the Alpha Hall. I was not invited. But loyal wolves later told me everything. "I have been made weak," Darius said. "They questioned my authority because of my mother's betrayal." One warrior stepped forward. "What are your orders, Alpha?" Darius walked to the great map hanging on the wall. He placed his hand over the Omega district. Anyone who openly supports Eryx will lose their rank. Another warrior hesitated. My Alpha, many innocent families live there. Innocence does not matter. Loyalty does. Several warriors exchanged worried glances. One finally spoke. With respect. Our oath is to protect every member of the pack. Darius's eyes hardened. My word is the law. The warrior slowly removed the badge from his armor. I cannot obey that command. The room froze. No one had ever refused an Alpha's order. Darius's face darkened. Then leave. One by one. 3 more warriors removed their badges. Then another. Then another. Not because they hated Darius. Because they loved justice more than fear. Leadership built on intimidation was beginning to collapse. Near midnight, an old traveler arrived at Ironcrest's gates. His cloak was covered in dust. His silver beard reached his chest. The guards nearly turned him away until he quietly said, I carry a warning for Luna Lenara. They brought him to me immediately. He introduced himself as Orin, a wandering scholar who had spent decades studying ancient prophecies. I have traveled for 20 years to find you. What warning? He reached into his satchel and removed a weathered scroll. The parchment looked older than any book in our archives. He carefully unrolled it. At the center was the image of a wolf standing between a crown and a flame. Below it were words written in the ancient lunar language. He translated them aloud. When a mother chooses virtue over blood, the kingdom shall split in 2. One heart shall seek justice. One heart shall seek power. And from the shadows, the forgotten king shall rise. A chill ran through me. The forgotten king? Orin nodded. A ruler who vanished generations ago. We believed he was only a legend. So did I. He looked directly into my eyes. Until 3 villages disappeared this month. My heart skipped. Disappeared? Without survivors. He leaned closer. I do not believe your family is the beginning of this story. I believe you are standing in the middle of a much older one. Before dawn, I walked alone along the eastern wall of Ironcrest. The kingdom slept beneath the pale moonlight. For a brief moment, everything looked peaceful again. Then I noticed something unusual. Footprints. Not wolf tracks. Boot prints. Dozens of them. Leading toward the forest. They had not come from Ironcrest. They had come from outside our borders. I followed them until the trees grew thick. There, nailed to the trunk of an ancient pine, was a black banner marked with a silver crown I had never seen before. Below it was a single sentence written in crimson ink. The divided cannot survive. As I reached for the banner, a distant horn echoed through the forest. Then another. And another. They were not our horns. An army had entered our lands. And for the first time since my husband's death. I feared that the greatest danger to Ironcrest was no longer my son's pride. It was the enemy who had been waiting for us to weaken ourselves first. Chapter 4. There is a saying my late husband often repeated. An enemy outside your walls is dangerous. An enemy inside your heart is deadly. At the time, I thought he was speaking about war. Now I understood he had been speaking about pride. The army approaching Ironcrest was real. But the hatred growing inside my own son was far more terrifying. At sunrise, the watchtowers rang the alarm bells. The sound echoed across every corner of the kingdom. Farmers abandoned their fields. Merchants shut their shops. Children ran home. Warriors rushed to the fortress walls. I climbed the eastern tower with Elder Rowan and looked across the valley. Hundreds of black tents covered the hills like a dark sea. Black banners bearing a silver crown fluttered in the cold wind. The enemy had arrived. Yet they did not attack. They waited. That silence was more frightening than battle. A patient enemy usually has a plan. Before we could decide our next move, a lone rider approached under a flag of truce. He was dressed in black armor trimmed with silver. His face showed no fear. He stopped before our gates and raised a sealed scroll. "I bring a message from my king." The gates remained closed. The captain accepted the scroll and brought it to me. Breaking the wax seal, I read the message aloud before the council. "To the wolves of Arncrest. We have no desire to destroy your people. Give us the Omega called Eric's Veil, and no blood will be spilled. Refuse, and your kingdom will fall before the next full moon." A heavy silence filled the chamber. Every eye turned toward Eric's. He looked completely confused. "I don't even know these people." Neither did I. Why would a mysterious army march across kingdoms for one humble Omega? The answer frightened me because I did not have one. The council immediately fell into argument. One elder stood. "It is only one life." Another slammed his fist on the table. "We cannot hand over an innocent wolf." Someone else shouted. "If refusing means thousands will die, what choice do we have?" I listened quietly. Then Darius stood. His voice was calm. Too calm. "I have made my decision." The room became still. "We surrender Eric's." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Eric's lowered his head but said nothing. I rose slowly. "No." Darius turned toward me. "No. No leader worthy of respect trades innocent lives for temporary safety." He laughed bitterly. "You still defend him?" "I defend justice." He stepped closer. "You would risk the entire kingdom?" I met his gaze without blinking. "If we betray one innocent today, tomorrow we will betray another. And another. Soon we will no longer recognize ourselves. True leadership is tested when fear demands compromise." That evening, I found Eric sitting alone beside the moon lake. The water reflected the stars like scattered diamonds. He skipped a small stone across the surface. "I've been thinking." "I know." He looked at me with tired eyes. "Maybe Darius is right." "No. If giving me away saves everyone." I interrupted firmly. "Never finish that sentence." He looked surprised. "But innocent people may die because of me." I sat beside him. "When your parents died, you were only a child." He nodded. "Did anyone ask whether your suffering was fair?" "No." "Then why do you believe your life has less value than everyone else's?" He had no answer. Many people who grow up rejected begin believing they deserve rejection. That lie is one of the cruelest wounds the world can inflict. I gently placed my hand on his shoulder. "You are not valuable because of what you can sacrifice. You are valuable because your life has worth." His eyes filled with tears. I've never heard anyone say that to me. My own heart ached. Every child deserves to hear those words. As darkness settled over Arncrest, Lady Selene came running into the castle. She was breathless. "Lunara. What happened?" "I overheard something." She struggled to catch her breath. "Darius. He met secretly with the enemy messenger." Cold fear gripped me. "What?" I followed him. They spoke beyond the eastern forest. My heart sank. "What did you hear?" "Only the end." She looked terrified. "The messenger promised that Darius would remain Alpha after Eric's was handed over." The room spun around me. My own son. Willing to bargain with strangers. Not for peace. For power. I closed my eyes. Sometimes the hardest truth is realizing that love cannot protect someone from the consequences of their choices. That same night, I confronted Darius inside the Alpha Hall. Only the moonlight illuminated the room. He did not seem surprised to see me. You know. Yes. He folded his arms. Then you understand. No. I understand only that my son has become someone his father would not recognize. His jaw tightened. You always compared me to father. Because he taught us what leadership means. And where did that leave him? His voice grew louder. In a grave. The words echoed through the empty hall. He stepped closer. Kind leaders die. Strong leaders survive. I shook my head. No. Cruel rulers survive for a while. Great leaders are remembered forever. For a brief moment. I saw sadness behind his anger. The little boy who once held my hand was still somewhere inside him. Buried beneath years of pride. I can still help you, I whispered. Come back. He slowly stepped away. It's too late. No. It never is. He looked at me one last time. You chose Eric's. You lost me. Then he walked away. Those were the last peaceful words I would ever hear from my son. Just before dawn, the castle bells rang wildly. A guard burst into my chamber. My Luna. The prison has been breached. What? Eric's is gone. I rushed through the corridors. The prison doors had been shattered from the inside. The guards lay unconscious but alive. There was no sign of Eric's. Only a strange symbol burned into the stone floor. A silver crown surrounded by a full moon. Elder Rowan arrived moments later. His face turned pale. I know this mark. I looked at him. What does it mean? He swallowed hard. It belongs to the Order of the Forgotten King. They have finally revealed themselves. Before I could ask another question, a deafening explosion shook the entire fortress. The eastern gate collapsed in a cloud of dust and splintered wood. Enemy warriors poured into Arncrest. The battle we had hoped to avoid had begun. And somewhere beyond the smoke, Eric's had disappeared. Chapter 5. There are wounds that never truly heal. The loss of a husband. The betrayal of a trusted friend. The disappointment of watching your own child lose his way. Those scars remain with you forever. But they also teach you something. Love is not proven by protecting people from the consequences of their choices. Love is proven by standing for what is right, even when your own heart breaks. This is the final lesson my story gave me. The eastern gate had fallen. Enemy warriors surged into Arncrest like a flood. The clash of steel, the howls of wolves, and the cries of frightened families echoed through every street. Smoke covered the sky. I refused to hide inside the castle. A Luna belongs beside her people. I took up my husband's sword for the first time since his death. It felt heavier than I remembered. Not because of its weight, but because of the responsibility it carried. As I reached the square, I saw warriors protecting children instead of chasing glory. Healers worked tirelessly, tending to the wounded without asking whose side they had chosen. In that terrible moment, I realized something beautiful. Even though our kingdom had been divided, compassion had not completely disappeared. There was still hope. Then the enemy leader rode into the square. His armor was as black as midnight, marked with a silver crown. The scar across his face matched the description Oren had given me. He removed his helmet and smiled. My name is King Valor. So, I said, you are the Forgotten King. He bowed mockingly. Forgotten by history. Never by destiny. His eyes swept across the battlefield. You have caused quite a civil war. No, I replied. Our pride did. He laughed. Exactly. That is why I waited. I knew your people would destroy themselves. All I had to do was arrive at the perfect moment. His words struck me like an arrow. He had never feared our strength. He had counted on our division. That was his greatest weapon. Suddenly, another voice echoed across the square. Release him. Everyone turned. Eric stood atop the broken gate. His hands were bound with chains, but his spirit remained unbroken. 2 enemy soldiers held him. King Valor smiled. You finally understand why I came. I stared at Eric's. What do you want with him? Valor's expression changed. He is the last descendant of the ancient Moon Guardian bloodline. The crowd gasped. For generations, Valor continued, we searched for him. The prophecy says only his blood can awaken the Moon Well, the source of the kingdom's ancient power. Eric's looked as shocked as the rest of us. My parents never told me. They were protecting you, Valor replied. They died keeping your secret. Everything suddenly made sense. Why the enemy wanted only Eric's. Why the prophecy had begun with him. Why destiny had brought him into our lives. Before anyone could move, Darius appeared. He walked through the battlefield with his warriors behind him. Every wolf watched in silence. Valor smiled. So, you've made your decision? Darius stopped only a few steps away. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Darius looked at me. His eyes no longer burned with anger. They carried something far heavier. Shame. I was wrong. The words were almost a whisper. No one moved. I believed power made a leader. I believed fear earned respect. He lowered his sword. When the enemy entered our home, I saw who stood between danger and our people. He looked toward Eric's. It wasn't me. It was the Omega I called weak. Eric shook his head gently. You don't have to. Yes, Darius interrupted. I do. He turned to the crowd. I let my pride blind me. I stopped listening. I stopped serving. And when a leader stops serving, he stops leading. Tears filled my eyes. This was the son I had prayed to see again. Not perfect, but humble. Real change always begins with the courage to admit we were wrong. King Valor sneered. How touching. But it changes nothing. He drew his sword. Kill them. Before his soldiers could move, Darius stepped in front of Eric's. I won't let you touch him. The battle erupted. This time, there were no sides within Ironcrest. Alphas fought beside Omegas. Hunters protected healers. Young warriors defended frightened children. The kingdom had finally remembered what it meant to be one pack. During the fierce battle, Valor broke through the defenders and charged straight toward Eric's. Darius threw himself into the attack. The enemy blade struck him across the chest. He fell to one knee. Run, he shouted. Eric's refused. Instead, he caught Darius before he collapsed. You saved me. Darius managed a weak smile. You saved me first. Not from death. From becoming the monster I was. Together, they stood. One Alpha. One Omega. No longer rivals. Brothers in purpose. United, they fought back. Inspired by their courage, every wolf surged forward. Valor's army began to retreat. Seeing his plan unravel, Valor fled into the mountains, abandoning his soldiers. Without their leader, the invaders surrendered before sunset. The war was over. Several weeks later, Ironcrest gathered beneath the same ancient silver oak where this journey had begun. This time, there were no angry voices. Only hope. Darius stood before the entire kingdom. I cannot continue as Alpha. The crowd looked surprised. I have much to learn before I deserve that honor again. He removed the Alpha cloak and handed it to the council. I will spend the coming years serving the very people I once ignored. No one mocked him. True humility earns respect. Not because it erases the past, but because it changes the future. The council appointed a temporary leader while Darius rebuilt the trust he had broken. As for Eryx, he refused every title that was offered to him. "I don't need a crown," he said with a smile. "I only want a kingdom where every wolf is treated with dignity." Lady Selene stepped beside him, and this time no one objected to the moon goddess's choice. Their bond was no longer seen as a scandal. It had become a symbol of hope. As I stood beneath the moonlight, I thought of my beloved Kaelin. I wished he could see our people now. Not because they had become perfect, but because they had finally understood. A kingdom is never made strong by bloodlines alone. A family is never made strong by pride. And leadership is never measured by power. It is measured by character. If my story has taught you anything, let it be this. Choose integrity over pride. Choose compassion over prejudice. Choose truth, even when it is painful. Because the strongest hearts are not those that seek to rule others. They are the ones willing to do what is right when everyone else chooses the easier path. And that is how the chaos finally ended.